Welcome to my channel, and I decided to make video about my progress in Escape 2 series of the books by Good Wives and Warriors. I have 4 books, and my oldest is Escape to Shakespeare's World. It was one of the first books which I purchased when I discovered Book Depository. So this book, for me, it now turned into a book where I can experiment with unusual colors, where I can experiment with new materials, because of the smaller size of the book and because here we have mix of designs. Some of them are quite complicated and with a lot of details, but some of the designs, they are more simplified, and in many of these books I colored pages which I didn't find very impressive, very inspiring when I got the book, but then I wanted just to play with colors, and sometimes simplified pictures from this book, they were quite a nice area for me to experiment. So let's start. I started to color in this book when I didn't have polychromos or Prismacolor pencils. I had my Derwent color softs and I had my Faber-Castell Eco children pencils. The good thing was that this paper is really good, so it's all forgiving for all pencils, even for such demanding pencils as color softs. I did this spread with color softs. I think that it was my first in the book, this one and Shakespeare's portrait. I think that you can recognize those cranberry, blackberry pencils from color softs. So if you have this set, some of these colors, they are easily to recognize. And after that I discovered that actually I can also use watercolors in this book. I did something very simple in the end of the book. I will find it later. Here, this one. And I realized that actually paper is good for watercolors, and it was a great discovery. So in all these books I used a lot of watercolors apart from my last one, because 4 of the books are printed on the beautiful creamy paper. I think you can see it here if you look. And the last one printed on bright white paper. It has the same thickness, the same tooth, but it doesn't want to work with watercolors, at least for me. So my Escape to Wonderland is slightly different. It's a 2nd edition probably. Here, we stopped here. Something very simple with soft pastel backgrounds, my earlier works. I really want to do this one, but I'm slightly afraid to color page with a small size and so many tiny details. But I'm sure that one day I will do it. I just need to invent how to show properly the light, because here we have the scene in the theater, and we need to show a light from projectors on the sides. I have to decide which media I can use. And I love that we have such small pictures which you can finish maybe in an hour, half of an hour, and you will have nice and finished project. But even with such small size, they are very detailed, so apart from pencils, I would also recommend to use some felt tip pens for the tiniest details. This one I also did with Derwent color softs, but I also added a little bit of pearl watercolors. So the cave around the dragon, it's magical looking, it's shiny, and I do love that this dragon, it's very positive, it's almost smiling. Here is example of one of my experiments. The page by itself, the picture, it was very simple, nothing special, and I didn't know how to color. But then I started to think that maybe I can show here contrast between something tender like this heart and flowers and this ornament which reminded me about a wedding dress of Juliet, and something hard like those arrows, like swords and metal parts. You can see that I also did quite dramatic background using graphite gray and mixed it with Bordeaux, and then I even sprinkled that red paint like splashes of blood. I really wanted to make this dramatic look, and because of the simple design I felt quite free in experimenting with colors and with textures, so that's why I appreciate this book a lot. Maybe I color them not as often as I would like to, but the main reason is that I have so many books that it's really difficult, complicated to make a proper turnover between all those books. So that's another one of my experiments where I did this circle background using stencil with circles. Inside of the circles I added color, and the rest of the skeleton I did with muted gray-brown colors. I think that it was interesting idea. Again, page by itself, it's macabre and totally not in my style, but with such experiments, I think that now it looks quite pretty and not so frightening. Here again it's a mixed media page. I used a lot of Inktense pencils, which also work very well on this paper, especially here on the water. Then you can recognize Inktense here on this Bordeaux background. The whole page reminded me about famous goblins, medieval fabrics, medieval ornaments, and I tried to maintain the same style. The most challenging part was how to color the white unicorn, so I added a little bit of blue-gray for light shading on the head, legs and tail, and I also added a little bit of copper and bronze dots to make it a little bit more magical. That's one of my recently finished pictures where I used polychromos pencils for the ships and Inktense for the water. Surprisingly, I didn't like how polychromos behaved here. I had to use ivory as a blender or even one of Prismacolor pencils, so I think that it was my first and last page to do with polychromos. Even cheaper pencils, they were easier to use on this paper. Maybe the biggest surprise for me was that I definitely needed blender. Usually with polychromos I never use blender. It's enough to use pencils by themselves, but here I had to cover that grainy texture. Or maybe it's my coloring skills which were a little bit rusty. I don't know, but I definitely don't intend to use polychromos here for some time at least. The next one, again simple, but here I used one of the rarely used set of watercolor pencils. That's were aqua blend from set with limited amount of those brown red colors, but here for the background together with golden frame, I think that it looked quite nice, so at least somewhere I used this set. I don't know if you can see, but on skeleton I practice how to do color of the bones. I combined French grays with beige so it doesn't look flat. It was a nice and quick experiment, and it helped me for the next pictures where I had to color bigger skeletons, bigger skulls, and with those sapphires on the crown I think that the skeleton looks quite fashionable. Sometimes I also love to do such simple pictures. Sometimes I love challenges, like to color something in Kerberazana's, but sometimes I also want to relax and to color something quickly, and that's where this series of books is very helpful. The whole spread here I did with watercolors. Well, maybe it lacks some contrast, but at the moment when I did it, I was extremely proud of myself, and it was another um, uh, video, another coloring where I confirmed to myself that paper is really good for watercolors. Just this fish I did with probably with Prismacolor pencils, I think so, but it's not so important. More important how I did architecture and this Venice landscape with watercolors. So many good pictures which I want to do. Here I did for one of the mermaids, I think maybe for the last year, where I experimented a lot with various colors for the mermaid tails. Quite simple, with Prismacolors here, violet, lavender with golden highlights on it. Here I tested my Faber-Castell water-soluble pencils. I had limited set of 6 colors, and even if pencils they are good, but I realized that I don't know how to color with set of 5 or 6 pencils. They are nice, but they definitely have to be united with other sets for me to color easily. Another strange and macabre spread where my main purpose was to test dusky pink watercolor, granulating watercolor by Royal Talents with one paint, but by varying amount of water I managed to do this background where we can see colors from this gray, dirty gray, to purple and even lavender pink. That's just properties of this paint, very helpful for such quick backgrounds. Then I did those silver lines, and after that I colored all the insects. I don't like to color insects, but I decided that because of the color of the background I still love the spread, and it helped me to learn better these interesting watercolors. Oh, I really want to do this spread, but I am so terrified by amount of details, but I think that I will do it, maybe for Christmas. It's perfect for Christmas celebration, so many yummy things here. Here we have Macbeth, and in Macbeth's part I probably colored the biggest amount of pictures here. Again, a lot of experiments with watercolors for fire, for the background, for the smoke, for the cauldron, and here also with a lot of metal paints for shining. I don't know why I decided to add here this spider web, maybe it wasn't the best idea, but still it's now fun to look at. At least all those lizards, they are nice and bright. I love all my pictures finished here. Another spread which I did with color softs, I think. Here it was boring to do this tartan background. I do love tartans, but here it was complicated to maintain pattern because all those ribbons, they had different amount of stripes, so I had to add them myself. Then I outlined them also with gold to make them look more accurate, but I hope that indeed it looks in Scottish style with such tartan backgrounds. And I love to color all those thistles. I hope that I pronounce correctly the name of this traditional Scottish flower. They are so beautiful, so interesting. And I think that I colored almost all pictures with them. That's my current project. Of course, video will be on my channel very soon. This one also is interesting, but with a lot of details. I wanted to color it, but then I realized that it's not only I have to color all the perfume bottles, but I somehow still need to show that it smells of the blood. It's important part of this picture, and somehow I need to show it. I haven't decided yet in which bottle I need to put blood. Well, maybe it sounds strange, but sometimes I think too much when I do my color planning. I don't know why I hadn't finished this one yet. Maybe something went wrong with the pencils, with the color choices. Maybe I didn't like how sky look. I think that I didn't like the grainy look of the sky. Now when I have Prismacolors, I think that I can simply work with maybe powder blue on top of it to make it more smooth, and in such way I can finish this interesting Egyptian page. Of course, I want to do it like a full spread, so I have to select similar colors. Maybe I will finish this one because I really love the initial line art. This one is also quite interesting with this mosaic design, and now when I have felty pens, maybe it's time to do this also, and I love all those Egyptian traditional ornaments. This one I did with black background, where I also added Orion, which was quite important for the Egyptian mythology, Egyptian face. So, and when I do these Egyptian pictures, I always try to maintain their color palette with turquoise, cobalt blue, and all those earth colors, golden, brown, terracotta, sanguine. What else I have here? Probably nothing apart from this simple watercolor page, but I hope that, of course, I will continue to color here. It's a really nice book, and even if now it's complicated to find this first edition, I highly recommend all this series because of the beauty of the designs and the quality of the book. Still, they are really nice. After that, I purchased Escape to Oz, and my initial plans were to color this book in order, but this idea, it ended quite quickly. I started to do this one with watercolors, and I do love how I did this yellow brick road. Then I absolutely don't know why I hadn't finished. I think that simple pastel green for the background, and it will be finished. Maybe I will do it because it looks nice, and I do love poppies, I do love these bricks. I remember that I was quite proud that I managed to do yellow bricks, but with some slight color changes, some shading. Well, so it's not bad. Here I did watercolor underpaint first for the sky, for the grass, and then I worked with pencils. I don't remember exactly which pencils, but I think that all videos, they are available on my channel. There is a playlist, Escape to, and I already put there a lot of videos. Here again I mostly used watercolors. It looks slightly dirty and muted, but maybe for the poor Kansas house it's not the worst color palette. Such designs I am not a huge fan of coloring, and I don't know how connection it has to the initial story. This one is not bad, maybe I can do it with watercolors. So after this spread, where I again practice how to do yellow bricks, I abandoned my idea to color in order, and I simply selected which pictures I love the best or where I can easily invent color palette. Mostly I selected spreads where I can practice my watercolors. I don't do anything complicated here, just a layer of watercolors for the sky, for the grass, for the leaves, where it's too boring to do it with pencils, and then for the smaller details, of course, I switch to pencils. Even budget pencils like Sucolor and Arteza, they work well here. I did a couple of spreads with budget pencils here. So many designs I want to color here. Here it's a spread with acrylic paint background. I think that this dark red created good connection to the idea of Emerald City, and it also created good contrast to the main image. I tried to use similar colors for the ornamental frames and to use similar colors for the emeralds. I think that everything colored with Prismacolors apart from the background, obviously. Again, these pictures they are in my playlist. Apart from Toto dog, which I don't like in this book, everything else is not bad. More of my experiments with granulating watercolor. This one is not Moonlight. So famous Daniel Smith a watercolor which can create from one paint colors from great lavender, gray, pink, and even like this intense violet. It was helpful for such kind of background. I love to color dark birds when I first do gray and black feathers and then add color accents with dark indigo or dark gray, here even with dark violet. So for me it wasn't boring to color all those crows. In the end I added a little bit of acrylic paint on the black feathers and it was finished. Another one which started as a very relaxed coloring where I just selected 3 or 4 different Inktense pencils for those ornaments. I think that it was Lagoon Blue, Peacock Blue and a couple of dusky purple, dusky pink. In the end I added those wooden texture and leather with regular pencils. So even if it was just to make something with my hands when my head was thinking about some other things, still I got pretty nice result, and that's why I appreciate this book. Wow, this was challenging. I did again watercolor background and then I started to work on all those animals. I think that even this spider, which wasn't very attractive in the beginning, now it looks good. Again, experiments with watercolors here because I didn't want to lose those words. So with bigger amount of water I did this misty background here. And finally I have this spread where I used color pencils together with watercolors. Watercolor obviously for the sky, and then all this coverage with budget pencils. You can see that they worked here really well. I think that my next page I can do with colors here. I love how they blend here, how they cover paper, and even this difference in textures between matte watercolor and slightly waxy cover on the pencil areas. It also looks nice here, like real illustration. Next, let's have a look at Escape to Christmas Past. I purchased it when I had a huge lack of any Christmas books, and I immediately fell in love, even if here we have part of the designs connected to Christmas and part of the designs which illustrate original Dickens story. I still mostly color it around Christmas time, even non-Christmassy designs. Here I used graphitins and Inktense to do this Victorian style building. Then I have video on my channel how I tried to improve those clouds to make them less childish looking, adding them softer edges with paint. Then I added a little bit of shiny paint to show this festive town somewhere far from this home. So it was interesting to use different materials, different art supplies, and to work on the good paper. All those graphitined muted grayish colors, they are really good for all architectural details. I highly recommend them if you love to color landscapes. That's another one of my experiments with paints. Here graphitins together with watercolors. Then I sprinkled a little bit of white and blue opaque paints to make impressions that snow is falling. And we have Scrooge. surrounded by beautiful golden frame. Quick, but still I like it, and I'm happy that even with such simple designs my book step by step is filled with finished pictures. Another one of my experiments where I tried again to use different combos of graphite pencils. Here I purchased Caput Mortuum watercolors and I needed to try them somewhere, so I tried them here. Also I purchased felty pens and gel pens, so I used them for the frames. Here everything is nice and shiny. And another very simple design, it's this door knob where I tried to practice how to color gold and steel. What else I have here? I have this candle, again watercolors plus metal and pearlescent watercolors for the shiny festive look, and then pencils, I don't remember, probably Prismacolors. This crazy spread. Here I remember that I used polychromos. Here I used definitely Prismacolors. You can recognize all those cream lavender, lilac, gray lavender and other pastel colors. I wasn't very happy with all those dots of snow. Maybe it was too much for me. So on top of it I added a little bit of pearlescent watercolor to create kind of halo around this glass. Well, it's not bad, but this one, it was slightly shocking. In my set of acrylic paints, acrylic gouache, I had this interesting viridian color, which by itself it's nice, but I didn't know where I can use it. I wanted to use it at least somewhere, and I decided that with this True Blue from Prismacolor, it actually they create beautiful color combo. And even if the color is still shocking for the winter page, I think that color palette is pretty interesting. Anyway, such pictures I don't treasure them very much, so I can experiment with different textures and colors. This one, it was interesting and beautiful and complicated. You can see that background consists of so many various things, so I had to divide them into several color groups, like blue snowflakes, then some red ribbons, flowers and berries, some green elements, and in such way I tried to maintain at least something like limited color palette. And of course the fur of the reindeer, it was interesting to experiment with beige and French grey colors. And it's magical because it has those golden antlers. I did a lot of pictures here with unusual background colors, including this one. Again, it reminded me about medieval tapestries, so that's where probably I got this color combo of rich madder brown or purple, madder red or purple red together with all those golden brown colors and with cobalt blue. I think that it's connected to this famous song of the on the 12th day of Christmas and the partridge on the pear tree. We have several pictures connected to this story in this book. Here we have swimming swans. So, and I love this song, so I tried to select several of the pictures connected to it. I did this one with Derwent color softs only. It was complicated to select colors from Colorsoft set to do such a page. I don't like greens from Colorsoft, so instead I decided to do a very fantasy style of the leaves. But the bird itself, it's nice. I really want to do this one for this Christmas. Here another part of the song, and here I did neo color background for the waves. I don't remember, for the clouds probably watercolors, and then a watercolor and pencils for the swans and for the rings. That's another one which I want to do for this Christmas, this beautiful celebration table. These kittens, they are ugly. Sorry, I don't want to color them. That was my first project in this book, this bakery, which I mostly did with watercolors. I'm still quite happy how everything turned. Only things inside of the window I did with pencils. I'm happy how I did falling snow, those snow laying on the windows, on the tree. So it was nice. I think that I will leave you a link to this coloring. Maybe not now, maybe in December it will be helpful. I also want to do this one. Next unusual background is here. When I did this very light pink background for the bells, I wasn't sure that I made the right choice. But now I think that with the intense colors for the green, for the bells, together with pastel background, everything looks quite well balanced. That's another one which I really love. I did this wooden background with watercolor and pencils, and then inner part with I don't remember, maybe with Inktense. Anyway, I do want to do the matching design on the right side. I just need to transform the same colors. Maybe the star this time will be golden or wooden with the same colors, and colors which I used here inside of the glass window or glass star I can use for the background. I have to rewatch my video. Sometimes it's very helpful when you have videos of your own colorings. I can use the same pencils and I can finish the spread. And I guess that's another one where I started to do background. I somehow wasn't happy how I covered background with this pistachio green acrylic paint. But now when I look at it, I think that if I do the main image, it can actually be a quite attractive page. I don't know why I abandoned it. Even if I don't like how I covered background, I still can transform it into a nice design. I don't like, honestly, to leave nice line art unfinished. And finally, let's have a look at Escape to Wonderland. And finally, Escape to Wonderland. I started to color it from the last page where I used artisan pencils, I believe, and a little bit of acrylic gouache for this very light pistachio green background. With acrylic gouache everything went well, and I didn't notice the difference in paper until I started to do the next spread. Here I used a regular transparent watercolors. I decided to try this slightly crazy mix of purple, intense violet, ochre, orange and magenta. But what I noticed is that on this paper the paints created those famous dots and stains, and paper absorbed pigment from watercolor much quicker comparing to how paper behaved in previous books. So I had to save this background. I sprinkled a little bit of those turquoise paint to mask some of the ugly areas. And in the future I decided that in this book I mostly will use gouache paints. Gouache, because of the more opaque texture, doesn't create such problems here. I didn't have problems with bleeding through, nothing like this, just I didn't like how watercolor paints blended on this paper. So this book will be for gouache. I also did this page where I tested Sucolor pencils. I just received this gift, Sucolors, and I was so curious how they would behave here. I love them on this area and on the animals. For the background here I used semi-transparent or semi-opaque Dune watercolor. It has a white pigment, so it's not transparent, and such paints also work well on this paper. After that I finally started to color from the beginning. With my artisan gouache I did this first spread. The background I did with artisan, various shades of yellow, ochre and peach colors. And I think that for the main image I used Star Joy pencils. I love their selection of pink and violet, so I used them on the flowers, then brown colors for her hair, so not so bad. Maybe I need to use more of these pencils in this book. I think that it was the page which helped me to fall in love with this book. I think that for the first time I saw a video of Peter Hewitt where she did this page, and that's where I noticed this series of the books. The most interesting was for me to select colors for the underground, for the cave. That was the moment when I received my Castle Art Pastel Tint pencils. So here, I hope you can see that inside of the cave we have all those interesting shades of beige, very light pastel green, pastel purple colors together with grays. Again, I struggled with the paint on the sky. It looks a little bit uneven, a little bit with some stains, but because of the very bright colors which I used here, it slightly distracted attention from the problematic areas. I decided to do this fantasy leaves. Here I used a lot of paint to mask some of the black lines to make a rabbit actually with light gray and white. So it was nice. In these books I don't limit myself to realistic colors. I can experiment with even excessively bright green, which I usually don't use when I do normal landscapes. And here we have another mixed media spread. I started here with gouache in a very intense Bordeaux red color. Then I decided that I want to make impression that she is falling down the rabbit hole. So with dry brush and with pearlescent paint I did this brush strokes, and in the end I sprinkled gold on top of all of this. So the background, it was also part of the experiments. Here regular watercolors first, those very dark violet colors together with magenta, then on top of it pearl and pastel blue, I believe. So interesting way to do this galactic background. Again, all those videos, they are on my channel, so if you are interested you can follow. Sometimes I experiment maybe too much, but on the other side I never interested in such pictures by themselves. They are not very attractive. This one, it's really beautiful. This one, it's more simplified, but here I can do any crazy experiments. I don't remember, I think that I deleted first how I started to color it. Maybe one day I will finish it. I wanted to try how my Mitsubishi pencils behave on top of the watercolor background. Can they create this slightly misty halo around the main image? So that was the only part of such experiment. I guess that's everything I did in this. No, I also have the rabbit, which I started to do with graphitins. Graphitins, I used this reddish brown and brown colors. They look muted, they look a little bit strange. So in order to make this background a little bit less boring, I added some vertical golden parts in the corners, and in such way I hope that page looks a little bit more finished, a little bit less empty. And then pencils for the rabbit. So it's definitely one of my favorite artists, those Good Vibes and Warriors. I still hope that they will do more books. I never heard any news from them that it's included in their plans. I follow them on Instagram, but unfortunately no news. But at least I have this beautiful series of the books. I can recommend it to everyone, from the beginners to the more advanced colorists, and I am sure that you will enjoy them. You can always find something more simple or more complicated to color, and I absolutely love the look of the book and quality, even if paper here it's slightly worse comparing to the first edition. Thank you, and I hope that soon on my channel I will publish more videos from this series of the books.